But let's stop talking about the color. It was fine. It did its job. The Game Boy Advance is what everybody cares about. This was the handheld that was like for me was the pinnacle of Nintendo's handheld systems. I love the GBA. 32-bit
Mm-hmm.
graphics, but it still had that old school feel as
Mm-hmm.
before the DS, which I enjoyed my DS, but not like the GBA. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
when they took out the GBA port from the DS, made sure I didn't buy another DS after that point.
Yo, the GBA, the Game Boy Advance was the king of handhelds. They sold
The king.
so many. It was
There was
so popular. And it's so many good games. I mean, if we have to really nitpick and find a flaw, there was no backlight.
not at first. No. I mean, for me, my love is with the SP
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think I bought the GBA at first because I heard about the backlight and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
and I waited like a year, and I think the SP came out like 1 year later, and that's when I bought the system. I was like, oh, this is friggin' great, man.
Oh, I bought the Atomic Purple GBA, the original one. I was loving it.
I remember people talking about having a light like on top of it so you could see like Castlevania and stuff. I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
can't do that, man. I'm just gonna wait. And I did. I waited till the SP, and it was worth it, because you had the backlight, of course.
Oh
I mean,
man,
how the hell did you play that thing, Wes? That thing was dark as hell. I
it
remember people would
was.
trade those in, and I would turn them on and be like trying to see like what the hell am I even looking at here, man?
Well, you
Granted, I'm blind as hell, but
like you said, all those accessories, like you had the light, you had the magnifier that clipped on. So many.
everybody had a worm light.
Everybody had a worm light. Everybody had a worm light. Oh man, but I'm just thinking of the games. You had Castlevania. We had
Circle the Moon.
Metroids. We
Oh,
had.
dude, the Metroid games were so good. They had Metroid Fusion was on there.
Mm-hmm.
They had a remake. No, well, was it a remake? Yeah, it was Metroid Zero. That was the remake of the NES one. Did they re-release the NES one too? It's like it's one of those black box games.
Yeah, there was like the classic NES collection. You had Donkey Kong. You had Castlevania, which were
Zelda was on
Zelda,
there.
which were like really just remakes of the old school NES games. Then you had Super Mario Advanced.
Yep.
Oh, so many good games, man. So many good games. So many original games too. Because I
Yeah.
remember, and I've mentioned it in one of our other videos, that game Boktai was for Game Boy Advance,
Oh, with the sun.
where you had to play it outside to it had a little sensor on it. You had to play it outside because the sunlight charged the weapon in the game.
Here's how that game went down for me, ladies and gentlemen. You need to play the game outside. No, thank you. Done. No interest. Don't be wanting to play games outside. That is not for me. But hey, if you enjoyed it,
It was
I'm
different.
happy you enjoyed it.
It was different. And then the GBA had the you remember the releases of those cartoon video cartridges?
I do. They had like SpongeBob and like I remember there being a lot of Nickelodeon stuff on there, and they would be like,
There was some
you
Dragon
know,
Ball on
like
there.
yeah, they were like
Mhm.
maybe you get like two episodes of SpongeBob on a cart, and eventually I think they had some movies. I want to say they had like Shrek on there, and some
Hmm.
watered down version that would play on the GBA.
But those were hugely popular, man. I remember selling tons of those when we were at EB.
Well, yeah, I mean, parents want their kids to, be quiet on a road trip.
Hmm.
Here's something you don't have to play. You can't even get mad at this because you're just watching it. So here's something to do for an hour or two. You're good.
Yeah, and then we got the introduction of. Didn't we get WarioWare on GBA? Yes, we did.
Oh, we most certainly
Yes,
did.
we did.
WarioWare Inc. was on the
Yes, we
GBA.
did.
So we go from the greatness of the Game Boy Advance, the glory days of handheld gaming, to the N-Gage. This would have been around the early 2000s, maybe 2001, 2002, 2003. I don't know anymore.
Oh, the N-Gage.
This was the beginning of cell phone games, and like before cell phone games were like just downloadable, they had games you would put into your cell phone.
Because the N-Gage was a cell phone.
It was a taco that you held up to your ear that also played video games.
It was. It was, man. It was, man. You remember when they first showed it to us? We were like all excited, and I'm like, wait. Oh, it's a cell phone? Oh, we have to put service on this thing?
I wasn't excited.
Oh man.
I remember seeing that thing and being like, "What the? Who wants to do this?" Like, if I want a cell phone, I'll have a cell phone. If I want to play games, then I'll have a Game Boy Advance. Like, I certainly don't need this thing. You know what I mean?
You know what? But the N-Gage had a huge backing because they had all like the A+ titles. They had Splinter Cell. They had Tomb Raider. They had Tony
So,
Hawk.
dude, it's crazy. I don't know how those companies went along with it. How did they think that? All right, yeah, this will be fine. Tony Hawk on a cell phone game, sure, it'll be all right. Get the hell out of here.
You know, because I mean,
Tony Hawk was like barely playable in the GBA.
well, I mean, the N-Gage, from what I remember, graphically, it was a little bit better than the GBA. I mean, it had multiple buttons. It was different. It was cool.
No.
Maybe I'm a little biased because they gave me one.
Yeah, I mean, I know that. I think when you and I worked together, I think you were still picking up some games for that. I don't remember exactly because like my time at GameStop and EB Games, because that's where I started, it's all like segmented and like fragmented together. So I have like a photographic memory of things. Like I can see pictures in my
Mhm.
mind, but I couldn't tell you where it was. Like I can see pictures of the store, but I don't know if that's the store you and I worked in. I don't know if that was the store I worked in downstairs. I don't know if that's the other 3 GameStops I worked in the state of New Jersey. But I had the picture on mine. I couldn't tell you where it's from. Like I remember seeing the N-Gage games
Right.
wrapped around the counter.
Yep.
Uh, and I don't know if that was at your store or somebody else's.
I think it was ours. I think we were upstairs because we had them in the case right behind the counter.
And then so when you walked in the store, was the GBA immediately to your right?
Yes.
Okay, maybe it was your store then. I don't know. It's all a blur.
It's all a blur. But the N-Gage, and then they came out with the smaller version of the N-Gage to kind
Like
of.
it mattered at that point. Nobody
It
cared.
was still, they didn't, but they tried to, because I guess they got tired of the taco jokes and they tried to make it
Yeah,
a
I
little
mean it was the
smaller.
butt of everybody's joke. It was like, oh, you got the taco game? Yeah, man, put your
You
taco
know, yeah,
game
you
on.
had to hold it to your face like you were talking on the phone, but it looked like a taco.
New N-Gage QD. Choose the right weapon to win the fight. Engage anyone, anywhere.
Tell me about the second revision though. Now I'm curious. What did it look like?
It was
Did it look more like a phone?
it was rounder. It looked like a smaller, rounder version of the original Game Boy Advance.
Okay,
And the
that's not
N-Gage.
as bad, I guess.
Remember going to E3 and the N-Gage had a huge, huge section. I mean, everybody was behind this thing. It wasn't a shortage of games. It just never caught on.
That's so crazy for me to think about because I knew it was crap right away. Like the day I saw it, I was like, I'm not interested in it. I want nothing to do with any of this. That was like, I'm going to give you an example. This is like when the PS Vita came out. And I'm not talking trash about the Vita. I do like the Vita quite a bit. But here's what I don't like about the Vita. They had a 3G proprietary system set up through
Mm-hmm.
AT&T that you had to sign up through AT&T to get.
Mm-hmm.
And as soon as I heard that, I was like, what are you doing? First of all, a huge chunk of the country doesn't have AT&T. They're not going to go to AT&T just to make the 3G capabilities of your device working. And half the people at AT&T hate AT&T. What were you thinking? What
Yeah.
did you think was going to happen? And the N-Gage was along the same lines. It's like, dude, if you just want to play a handheld game, go get a GBA.
Yeah.
There was already a GBA.
Yeah,
We don't need something else.
I guess they were trying to combine the best of both worlds. So you had your cell phone and your game system on one system, and it ran off T-Mobile service. So we were when we would sell them, we were like, okay, so you have to go down the hall to T-Mobile and have them activate it for you.
That's what people want to hear. Thanks for buying this. I need you to go to another store and pay them for something else.
Yeah,
Have a great day.
that was funny, so funny. But then from the
Jesus.
N-Gage, we move on to the Nintendo DS.
The second best Nintendo system, handheld system of all time.
Yeah.
The DS was fantastic, Wes.
It was good. It took me a minute. It took me a minute to warm up to it. It really did. It took me a minute.
Was it because you felt like the dual screen, the touch screen was like a gimmick, or why?
You know what? I wasn't sure how this was going to play out. I was like, okay, so we had, the dual screen, the top and the bottom. Then we had the stylus, and I was like, all right, Nintendo. Did you go too far out of your realm? We'll see. Because GameStop gave us one, or Nintendo gave the GameStop managers one. It came with the Metroid demo.
First hunt.
Yep.
If you work at a game store, you know what first hunt is because people try to trade that in as if it's the full game, and it's a demo.
Full game. And it was good. I'm like, oh, okay. It surprised me. And then as more games came out, I started to appreciate it more. And then they started to get creative because you had, your game screen, and then you had the other one where you can either write or do your action with the stylus, or one would be your map and the other would be the game screen.
Hold up. Stop there. That was the best thing the DS ever did, was have one thing be your map and the other thing be the screen. Because a lot of the touching did get annoying, but having that map there was sick, man. That was so great, man. Having that map as your second screen was awesome.
It was good. It was, yeah. And then we got a lot of, we said the GBA had a lot of games. The DS got a lot of games.
It was a true evolution from the Game Boy to go to the DS. Like, it really was. I wasn't necessarily on board right away, but I did have the first version of the DS. I ended up getting the DS Lite after that. I think my first version actually got stolen. But then I got a DS Lite and I was totally okay because that thing still had the Game Boy slot. And then they made the DSi, and I think that's when they started taking away the Game Boy slot. And I was like, what are you guys doing? I don't want this.
The DSi came with a camera.
Yeah. Replace my GBA slot with a camera. Way to go. That was a good idea. Didn't use that at all. Didn't have a DSi.
Nah. Oh, man, but anyway. You think about the games on the DS. It had, we had Metroid. We had Contra. We had the staples. You had Mario. But then we had...
Dude, Animal Crossing Wild World, what was on the DS, is still to this day probably my second favorite Animal Crossing game. But I'm sure it's many people's first. That game is fantastic on the DS.
Is it?
It's one of the best versions of Animal Crossing still to this day.
Okay. You're the first person to actually say that. So
it's so good. It's so good. And then they brought back Mario and made him like 2D, but with like a 3D environment. They brought the new Super Mario Brothers back. That was gigantic.
Yep. And then we had Cooking Mama. Cooking Mama, so tons, man. Tons.
They hit me in the heart, Wes. They put out Super Mario 64, probably my favorite game of all time on the DS, and I think my thumbs were broken after playing that game for like a couple hours. Like, it hurt my hands so bad to play that game, but I had to get through it. I had to keep playing. And it was worth it.
And then, oh man, well, you can't talk about Nintendo DS if we don't talk about Nintendogs.
I had Nintendogs.
I think everybody
I didn't play it very long. I played it for like a week. And it was all right for a week, but I ain't trying to take care of animals.
That's exactly what it was. You had to. There were different versions because each version came with a certain breed of dogs. And you raised it as a puppy and played with it and fed it and took care of this thing on your DS, and it was the next evolution of a Tamagotchi.
It really was. I had the Dachshund version, and I think that's what I had. I'm pretty sure I had a wiener dog in there. I'm almost positive that's what I had. But I don't remember. That was like 15 years ago. That dog is dead by now, ladies and gentlemen. That dog has definitely died because I haven't fed it or done anything with it. Christ, that might have been 20 years ago.
It was.
I don't
It
know.
was a
It's been
while
long
ago.
time.
It was a while ago. Wow. What else do we have? Another version of WarioWare.
WarioWare Touched, which was another great iteration on WarioWare. WarioWare Inc. was fantastic. Touch might have been even better because, like I mentioned earlier, you could roll the toilet paper with a stylus.
Yes, you can.
Fantastic.
Yes, you can.
So much fun.
Rhythm Heaven, which was I loved Rhythm Heaven. It was
I never played Rhythm Heaven.
So good. So good. It was just a bunch of, it was WarioWare because it was all made up of mini games, but they were all rhythm based.
I mean, that sounds kind of like my jam. I do love rhythm games. Rock Band, Guitar Hero.
Oh,
kind of my shit.
Guitar Hero on DS though? Nah, not so much, bro.
They had a little thing for it.
They did have a little thing for it.
If you wanted to look ridiculous, you could put this little thing in your hand and be like this on your DS. They had that available to you. I remember those things getting traded in, and they were everywhere. It was like a friggin' infestation of Guitar Hero DS controllers in the store. They were all over the place, and nobody. They were 99 cents with the controller, and people weren't buying them.
Well, that was at the height of the whole music genre. So,
I mean, that was a great time.
It was good times.
I really missed that time.
It was good times.
I still play Rock Band to this day, Wes.
I keep thinking about pulling Guitar Hero out. I tried to do the new Guitar Hero, but I didn't like it. Like the
Guitar Hero Live?
Yeah, I didn't like it. It wasn't the same.
So Guitar Hero Live and Rock Band 4 came out the same year. I don't do Guitar Hero anymore, but Rock Band 4 was awesome. Did you know it's 2022 and they are still releasing new music for Rock Band 4?
Really?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes. It's crazy to think that, but it's true. And I play that game, to be truthful, I probably play it like once or twice a year. And every time I play it, they get money from me. Because I turn it on, I'm like, oh, they have new music. Oh, what's this? And I play the song one time, and they get my money.
What? I'm just remembering, like, Nintendo DS, it appealed to non-gamers because it had so many puzzle games. Because you had Scrabble, you had crosswords, you know, there was just a lot of puzzle games, cards, and which appealed to the non-gamer, like the older people.
Well, not only that, during this era, this is pre-Wii, right? This is right before the Wii comes out, I'm guessing?
Yep.
This is when Nintendo made a pivotal move. It was very smart of them. So the GameCube was considered a failure. At least as far as like numbers go, if you look at the books, like it was not great for Nintendo. The GBA did very well. So then they're going to make, a decision to change the handheld. When the GBA was like, when the DS came out, the GBA was still putting out great games.
Mm-hmm.
Still. They were like putting out the DS and they're saying, oh, we're going to continue the GBA, but we're also going to do the DS, which was pretty much a lie. A year after the DS came out, the GBA was done. Like everybody started developing games for that. But what Nintendo was able to do at this point was really start marketing to women, because that's something they didn't do. And I don't just mean like older women. I mean like younger women, like, children, like younger girls. And this was the first time I remember really seeing a lot of younger girls shopping in the store to buy video games. And it was for the Nintendo DS. It wasn't for any other system. That's the system that they were shopping for. And that kind of bled into the Wii as well. But it started with the DS.
I believe it. Oh, yeah. I agree with you 100%.
That system was huge, man. Huge. I still think to this day it was the second biggest selling system of all time. I think the only system that ever surpassed that was the PlayStation 2.
Okay. Huh.
Yeah, so just for context, the PS2 sold 155 million units. The Nintendo DS family sold 154.02 million units. That's not including the 3DS. They have those labels separately. 3DS did 75.94 million.
Right.
So 154 million. Dude, the second best-selling system of all time was the Nintendo DS.
It was the Nintendo DS. I believe it, man. It was hugely popular. And Nintendo did it again. They really did.
That's what makes their handheld special, man. They just know what they're doing with it. So good.